afternoon's episode of How We Changed the World. Today we'll be looking at something you can bet you benefit from every waking moment. No, not chocolate. We're talking about computers through the ages. And before you grow and roll your eyes and call me a geek, just think, where would you be without your beloved MSN Messenger, Facebook and Bebo of an evening? Exactly, you'd be bored. Now then, today my fellow reporters are Alice Gibson and Rebecca Gomez. We will each tell you about 2 different decades worth of computing, and it's your job to make sure you're paying attention, or at least pretending. I will start today's episode off with the 50s. In 1951, the first computer was designed for use by the US business. In 1952, the first computer compiler was built. This basically changes English, like the English I'm speaking now, into machine language or binary code, which is ones and zeros like you see at the start of Matrix. In 1955, there was the first disk drive for random storage of data. In 1957, Fortran becomes commercially available. Fortran is Formula Translation. This basically is a high-level programming language that, alongside COBOL, will pretty much remain as the main used programming system for a few more decades. In 1958, integrated circuit was invented. Not much happened in the 1950s, so we're off to a slow start. But here's to Alice for the 60s.
Hello, I'm Alice Gibson reporting for How We Changed the World. As you've seen so far today, we are working on computers through the ages. My particular ages being the 60s and the 70s. In the 1960s, computers were smaller and faster before, as technology had developed, but they were still far too big for home use. The number of computers in use and their size and speed expanded rapidly in the 1960s, escalating the demand for software to support the numerous tasks for which computers were now being used. This provided enormous opportunities for entrepreneurs to create new companies to serve this expanding market. In the 1970s, computers were gradually getting smaller and were being used for small businesses, and microprocessors were made. They were now small enough to be used in homes and schools. We still use computers with microprocessors, and they keep getting smaller and smaller in price and in size. In the 1970s, the popularity of computers was beginning to take hold. As a result, several companies were expanding and improving on computer technology to increase the income potential and by making personal home computers more accessible and fun to use for everybody. In 1977, the Apple company introduced their Apple II model. The Apple II was well received by the public because it was produced specifically to market the masses. In fact, this is the model that many believe to be the beginning of personal computer revolution, because it was the first of the successful home computer systems in the United States. This was such a durable and popular model that it still retained its popularity even to the 1990s, and some of them are still in use in classrooms today. People started to realise that computers could be the future, and we all know that they were right. Imagine today not having your computer. I mean, you wouldn't be able to do your homework. Okay, so that's not such a bad thing. But you wouldn't be able to go on MSN and chat to all of your friends, or go on Facebook and publish really embarrassing pictures of your friends drunk off of their heads posing in public toilets. That would be a great shame. Anyway, thank you, and back to the studio with Katie.
Thank you, Alice. That chocolate made me a bit hungry now, though. Anyway, have you been paying attention? There's a reason after the show. Now, to continue onwards, I hand you to Rebecca Gomez for the 80s and the 90s.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Gomez reporting for How We Changed the World, talking about computers in the 80s. The 80s were a very important decade in computer development, as this was when things started to change much quicker. In the 80s, some important things that happened include the first computer animated movie, the first computer virus, and the start of Microsoft Windows, the biggest operating system ever. In 1982, Disney released the movie Tron, the first movie to use computer-generated special effects. In 1982, Rich Skencher, a 15-year-old high school student, created the first no-computer virus known as the Elk Cloner. Also in 1983, the Microsoft Windows was announced. In 1986, more than 30 million computers were in use in the United States, which is loads. In 1987, Microsoft introduced Microsoft Works, which is a basic version of Microsoft Word, which went on to be the most successful program in computer history. In 1988, about 45 million PCs are in use in the United States, which is 15 million than 2 years before. In 1988, Frederick Reinster discovers liquid crystal, which is what they use for LCD TVs. Okay, computers in the 90s. You could easily argue that the 90s was the most important decade in the 20th century for computer development. In the 90s, many important things happened, such as the invention of the internet and Google, the biggest search engine ever. Here are some computer breakthroughs from the 90s. In 1990, Microsoft exceeded $1 billion in sales and became the first company to do so. In 1991, Tim Berners-Lee introduced the World Wide Web to the public on the August 6th. In 1993, President Bill Clinton put the United States White House online with a World Wide Web page and email address for the President, Vice President, and First Lady. In 1994, Yahoo was created.
Yahoo!
Yahoo, yeah. In 1995, Microsoft released Windows 95, obviously. Within 4 days, the software sells more than 1 million copies. In 1997, Bill Gates was the world's richest businessman, and he was the founder of Microsoft. In 1998, Microsoft Windows 98 was officially released. And in 1998, Google was founded on September the 7th. In 1998 as well, Apple introduced the iMac, and the iMac helped bring Apple back on the computer maps as it was a very easy and friendly computer to use. In 1999, Microsoft released Internet Explorer 5.0 in March 18. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Rebecca. Now back to me for the 20th century. In 2000, there was the launch of Windows 2000, of course, and the release of PlayStation 2. In 2004, Firefox was released, Microsoft's biggest competitor since Netscape Navigator. In 2005, Microsoft announced that Windows Vista is to be released early 2007. 2006, PlayStation 3 is released by Sony, and Nintendo released the Nintendo Wii. And now then, this brings us to the end of our show. Hopefully you have learned something from it and not just caught some Z's on your desk. Yes, I see you ones at the back. From what we've told you, don't you agree that computing has come such a long way and is playing such an important part in our lives now? And imagine what it would be like in the coming years. Anyway, this is Katie Ford signing out. Thank you, goodbye, much love.
Hello, I'm Rebecca Gomez for Report.
Is it working? I can't pour some more.
Hello, this is Rebecca Gomez reporting for How We Changed the World. I'm going to talk to you about computers in the 80s.
Hey!
The 80s were a very important decade in computer development, as this is when things really started to change much more quickly-ish, less through in computer development. I should really practice this before I do it. Can you pause it?